Okay, so welcome. Just catching some waves of where people are calling in from today and where you'll be participating in this ceremony. And, I would love to just also open up the door to, what are some of the, you know, um, automated and automatic responses, that you encounter in your own life and in this phase of your soul's journey, that you feel and that you find are not in alignment with your authentic self. So that's kind of one of the questions. And, it's almost like, what are you releasing? But it's like, it's an invitation to just go a little bit deeper than fear or, anxiety or, whatever the things that generally come up. One of the cool things that happens when we start to learn the languages of our body, meaning like how we're perceiving reality through how our nervous system is attuning to our environments, and not just in the present moment, but the way our nervous system carries imprints from the past. It's so helpful, I think, so you could either muse in the chat, or you can open a document or muse in your own journal around, what are some of these habitual responses, or an area in your life that feels like it's just kind of imbued with lack, or the whatever the opposite of abundance and worth from, not just a material reality, although that might be an area where, goddess is calling you to pay attention to, because that happens in tantra. It's not like material and the spiritual are separate, right? But we're also acknowledging, that there's a way that we're conditioned to respond. And we're going to get into a little bit more like teachings around, Shiva and Shakti, and a little bit of a tantric perspective and teaching here in a moment. But I want you to just feel into your own experience, because, a lot of things can shift and unfold throughout this work together. So what does that look like for you in this phase? Like when you're dysregulated, when you're feeling separate from that interconnectedness with all beings and all things, when you're, in your contraction after your expansion, what does that look like? And can you just describe it maybe in physical sensations or emotional sensations? And we're going to celebrate, this aliveness that we all do carry within us throughout this ceremony today. But I always like to kind of bring in, like, what are the parts that are, that have been hidden, that are uncovering, as a midheaven and Jupiter in Scorpio, I feel like, it's a big part of my job to keep kind of bringing us back to what is hidden, what has yet to be revealed, and connecting to it, right? And one of the main and easiest ways I found to connect to it is through our experience of the body, meaning our physical sensations, our emotional sensations, the visions that we have, the meaning that we make in our lives, right? This is all a part of our body, which is our subconscious. And our subconscious is all the things we can't know yet. So it's interesting to try to talk about the things we can't know, because we can't, you know? And when we describe, like, wow, when I'm in these contracted states and we start to bring consciousness to that, it does something, and it gives us these little doorways into how am I when I'm in the underworld, right? How am I perceiving myself and others when I'm there? And that's part of what we're bringing consciousness to, because that's the integration. And then if we experience bliss, for example, which is our true nature, then when we experience it, we understand that that experience of bliss is not just separate from the contracted forms of, material reality we encounter, but that it's also a part of it, and that we're all doing this dance. So I'm going to pause. And also, if you feel like you want to stretch your body at all, like if you're kind of, you write a little bit and then you realize, like, oh, I want to move and stretch. Um, I'm going to kind of give us a moment to do a little emotional release practice in about 5 minutes, but I want to, like, also invite you to get what you need to, take this time really for you. Maybe you want to, like, get up and do some movement. I'm going to read something from this book called Dancing in the Flames, The Dark Goddess in Transformation of Consciousness. because that's basically, what's going on over here, obviously. So I'm going to read a little bit here as you kind of let yourself keep tuning in. Oh, funny, Allie. Yeah, maybe that's why I pulled it off the shelf. You were in my field. It's so good to have the accountability to do practice, isn't it? I don't know how people do it without it. I'm just so terrible at it. I need to like go to the ocean or like I need to like make an event out of doing my practice or like go to the river. That's why nature is so amazing in my experience of like doing this kind of work because it just feeds it and it gives me this like accountability. That's part of why I love connecting, like I said, to fire as an elemental sacred living being. Because it draws that devotion out of me. So it's not just like I do my practice as a chore or because I'm supposed to, but it's actually something it's like calling. It's a calling that's coming from within me. And a lot of the work, that of dismantling all those things that get in the way of that is a big part of, what we're going to be talking a little bit about today and practicing with. The concealment and the revelation of our true nature and of reality as it is, and our capacity to be with reality. Okay. And Harshit is back. He was dropping the kids off. Hello. We're just kind of getting started. Sure. You can do whatever mantra you like. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read this and then we'll keep sinking in. And all shall be well, and all manners of things shall be well, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crowned knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. This is the final image in T.S. Eliot's four quartets. Throughout the poem, as in musical quartets, various themes have been introduced, developed with many variations in major and minor keys, woven and interwoven to reveal each nuance of tone. The rose and the fire and the dance are three of the major themes that weave the four quartets together. The lotus rose, as Eliot first refers to it, suggests the soul flower of India, its roots firmly established in the mud, its stem reaching through the water to support the exquisite blossom opening to the sun, creation opening herself to consciousness. In the Western world, the rose dances with a similar soul value. Delicate, sensitive, vulnerable, the rose with its thorns carry images of intense passion that throws us into the fires of life, break, blow, burn, and make us new. While it burns in the fires of life, it is not consumed. Throughout the poem, fire has danced its presence as purifier, destroyer, creator. Having moved through the paradoxes of descent and ascent, movement and stillness, death and rebirth, agony and triumph, flesh and spirit. In the final magnificent chord of the poem, Eliot recognizes that nature and spirit, flame and flower are one. So finish writing whatever you're writing if you're still doing some of that. And again, just tuning in with what are, the less desirable or more habitual, or we could say unconscious states that, are in your world, that are in your body, that are in your experience of living. And, allowing them to be held here without judgment. At least that's the container that we're holding, right? Even if you can't do that yet. That's part of why we come together in community, because there's, we can't do everything in these realms on our own. And when you're finished with that, I'm just going to take a, few minutes here to just guide us and coming into some of what that looks like in our bodies. So let your eyes just start to move away from the screen when you're ready, and let your arms start to stretch up. And just take a nice yawn and stretch and just look around and find some things in your space or out the window that feel beautiful to look at, and just notice the shift of like being on the screen and then the shift towards being where you are in a different way. And just take your hands down towards your belly after you take a stretch for a moment, and keep kind of moving, at least just turning your head and your eyes side to side and all the way around. But if you can, also moving in your legs. So letting your legs start to move. If you're sitting in a chair, you can kind of just like turn and twist. But if you're on the ground, you can let your knees just fall side to side, and just holding your hands towards your lower belly. Take a few deep inhales, just breathing all the way down into your belly through your nose, and then just exhaling out of your mouth. And you can come back to the center and just make some circles with your hips and just do the same thing. So just inhaling, and then just let the exhale kind of drop out, and then inhaling again, and just let the exhale start to drop out of your mouth, so you're really relaxing your jaw like and you can let your eyes either close or focus on something in your space that feels natural or pleasant, and switch directions of your circle and let them go a little slower. You can bring your hands around your back to where your sacrum and your lower spine is, your lumbar spine, and just kind of placing your hands gently but firmly and taking a few breaths. Deep inhale. And you're going to start to make a gentle sound as you exhale, like a sigh, and really feel the inhalation. Make like a ha, low ha sound. Bring your hands up a little bit higher, like where your waistline is, and take a deep breath there. Good, and just one more time. Let your body rock a little bit. And just shake out your arms. Grab a pillow or just something soft just to bring to your chest for a moment. And you can just pause here and either let your eyes close or keep them softly resting on something beautiful or pleasant. And just take a few breaths, just feeling the support that's below and behind and in front of you in this moment. And just let the feeling, the visceral feeling of that support start to summon more parts of you here, whether they're from the inside or whether they've been scattered out. And just like call them back in like your own language and your own tone or beautiful way of summoning. And just allowing this pause to just see what's underneath, right? Maybe what was coming up for you when you first entered into this space. any younger parts, any wisdom, any emotion, right? Sometimes our bodies speak in the movement of emotion. And just noticing, right, that you can take this time, that you can take this hour to like really sink into your own depths of love and wisdom, that we can hold a greater capacity for suffering, for the things that are feeling unmet or unmatched in relationship, for the things that we encounter in the world as the world, and just feeling that you're not alone in that, that there's a wider web, even in grief, right? When we go through deep loss, personal loss of some sort, there's always, not that we experience it all the time, but there is this draw and this pull into that web of beings, of humans who've experienced that type of loss in their own way. And so, even in loss and in grief, there's a subtlety of connection that we can encounter when we kind of go underneath and underneath and underneath. And so the true wealth and abundance and prosperity and understanding and knowledge is really rooted in this place of truth, in this place of connection to the earth that's below us, connection to all the unseen beings and guides, and really calling in your ancestors, blood and spiritual, to just be here for this ritual, to be here for this moment that you're opening the doors to something unknown but benevolent. And then right before we come back into connection together, just ask your own heart, the seat of your soul, what it is that they need or that she needs, or what wants to be communicated in this moment. And allow yourself to open to receiving from spirit in the body a message or an image. You can imagine a blank screen or canvas, or maybe just a feeling comes up, a sense, and just make a little room for that, like a minute of just opening to that. Like, what's the deeper prayer?
And then when you're ready, just let yourself come back into this space and just kind of notice what it's like to come back into the group. If you would be so generous or willing to just share anything that you notice, just doing that little settling practice. And you know, as we're going to do a mantra practice with the fire, as many of you know, you've been here before, but if you're new, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And I want to give you the opportunity, if you're feeling a particular heaviness or grief, or even just like a lot of activation, you know, you can also at any time while we're doing the mantra, like use that kind of breath, or take a moment to like do a deeper, like, like yell into a pillow, like let yourself really be in a moment of expression. And it's like, and sometimes it feels like, oh, I really want to go in, but just feeling into that dance a little bit today, especially since many of you have been here many times and with us. So just feeling into, what's true and authentic in the moment. And please share, what did you notice just now? Like, what was your heart naming, or what did you see, or what did you sense, or what did you feel, right? We're kind of fine tuning our intuition and our oracle nature in this work, and acknowledging that we all carry that capacity to experience God within us in our own hearts and through this process. So Harshada and I were talking this morning about Kundalini Shakti, and we were talking about I was talking about this particular image of Shiva it's called Nataraja, right? And it's like the dancing Shiva. And part of the teaching within all of that is this concealment and revelation. And, we wanted to share a little bit about that before we do our fire.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. So today, when we do the fire offering, we're going to be invoking the goddess Kali, and the form of the goddess. Can you just like spotlight that?
Mm-hmm.
The form of the goddess that has this ferocious form, that has this form that looks terrifying, and she in some cases has skulls around her neck and blood and weapons, and so many different iconography, so much different iconography of that. And Kali or Durga or Lalita or any of these forms, they are like the counterpart of Shiva. And so we were talking about all this and talking about Shiva, and how a lot of times Shiva is associated with the dissolving power, like in Hinduism, there's like creation, sustenance, dissolution, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Durga, Kali, that sort of thing. But in yoga, in our mystical tradition, it's a little bit different, and that Shiva represents all of those powers, those three powers, but also these two other ones of concealment, meaning like we don't think that this is what's happening, that the divine is like creating and sustaining and dissolving and creating and sustaining and dissolving. We don't see it that way. We just get caught up in our own experience. That's called Maya in the mystical tradition. And then the fifth power is the power of revelation, is the power of like the mask being taken off of that process, and that we see that it is this divine process, and that God is in everything and everything is in God, and that the goddess is, woven into this universe, actually, is the way that Tantra describes it. And so then these images of Shiva dancing in a ring of fire, these images of Kali Ma with blood and weapons. And actually this morning we're going to be invoking a different form of Kali Ma that's called Bhadra Kali, which is a much more kind of sweet version of Kali Ma. This is a form of Kali Ma that is in Ganeshpuri, India, where our guru is. I'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, just to say that all of that intensity is iconography about the intensity of this process that we're all in. It's not about some goddess that's in another realm or something else. It's about this process that we're in of dissolving our own constructs. Like destruct is the opposite of construct, right? And that we're in this process of going from being just whatever our individual bondage is into ultimately, being free in this ultimate sense. And then along the way, just as people, we become more and more free, more and more loving, more and more able to serve, more and more able to like set other people free as we're setting ourselves free. And that's what that imagery is about. You know, it's like, it's not anger, it's not like, you know, feminine rage. All of those things are, you know, are very important to connect with. And Kalima can be a great representative of that. But from the point of view of like the deep tantric teachings, it's just a depiction of like the intensity of how we go from whatever our families raised us to be, or whatever the public schools were trying to like, society is trying to like, you know, oppress us and turn us into consumers and, you know, like put us to sleep in so many ways. And as we're waking up out of that and getting free from all of that covering and all that bondage, it's like, that's what the weapons are about. The weapons are about cutting us free from all of that stuff. So that fifth power in that system is actually the power of the guru tattva. Like not necessarily like that person is the guru, but the power that is there for us as seekers, as disciples. Whenever there's a disciple, there's a guru, whether there's like a person playing that role or not. And in today is like Lion's Gate, you know, 8/8 and that sort of thing. But in our tradition, we also are celebrating the Punyatiti, or the death of our master Nityananda of Ganeshpuri, and 63 years ago, like left his body on this day. So we celebrate that day for great beings in a way even more than birthdays, because it's like on that day or in that moment, Punyatiti means like the auspicious moment. At that auspicious moment, they become so much more available. Their energy freed from that individual form becomes available for us. And so that's kind of like where we're entering into this, and like the intimacy of that, like the intimacy of that process of like, for each of us, the thing that we're bound in is so personal. It's so intimate. And so like that process of the early process is very public, you know, just getting into spirituality, getting out of some bad habits, maybe getting into spiritual community. That's all like an outer thing. But as we get deeper and deeper into the process, it's so personal and it's so individual and it's so intimate. It's like these goddesses, whoever they are, however they are, whether they're just like this form of Lakshmi, just being beautiful, floating in a lotus pond with an elephant or whatever, or whether it's Kali Ma with the fire and the blood. It's like, these are depictions of that grace in us, touching us in the most intimate places. And that's what we want to invite you to when we do this kind of practice. It's not an outer thing. It's all, this is an outer representation of this inner thing that's so important.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also why I feel like in Tantra, like all the goddesses in my experience and working with them, because they kind of pull you into that process in a deeper and more conscious way, they're all fierce to me. Like to me, like Lakshmi as the energy of beauty,
all loving.
Right. All fierce and all like deep, you know, that mother. It's like it, and it's like, it's not just like, oh, it's this, you know, like in some, you know, it is that deeper power that like wakes us up. Because even when we look at Lakshmi and worth and beauty, right? Like I've worked with
money,
the energy of Lakshmi for a long time and offering that mantra to people. And I've heard so many women's experiences working with her very directly. And, you know, it's fierce. Like it puts you in this material reality in a way that like you have to confront some shit. Like it'll show you, right? And other times you just receive the blessings, but even when I think about like the beauty of nature, you know, it's like if you're actually like really with the portal of like beauty, it obliterates like every concept that you have about, yeah, just like what is beauty and all of that. You know, there's so much medicine that is quite fierce and loving, you know, that's inside of all of these goddesses. And, you know,
even in Saraswati's, like in art,
yeah,
and just like how you could just be obliterated by a good film.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like, yeah, I'm Venus in Pisces, so I'm always being obliterated by good films. He's got his moon in Pisces, so we're like, we're like crying on the plane,
watching
like
Queer Eye.
yeah, crying watching Queer Eye. It's the story of my life. Okay, it's not the only story. Yeah, thank you, Sherry. So what did you hear in that? Like, what do you know, like just to take a moment to reflect for yourself, like, you know, here's these teachings and, you know, we lean into these traditions, we lean into lineage, we lean into like something that has sustenance, right? Because we're not here to like do this alone, right? That's not the point. And that's, you know, that's part of what, you know, if we look at like spiritual constructs, meaning like wellness and, you know, the ways that spirituality is awakening in a more mainstream way, it's like the same kind of shit is there, you know what I mean, that also needs to be, you know, deconstructed in a lot of ways. Or if we have that, you know, privilege to have that choice, so we can actually have these direct experiences and then trust that, you know, and trust something that goes beyond anything, you know, we could buy or anything that we could lean into that's outside of ourselves as well. So I'm curious, like, what are you hearing in that and what we're sharing? What does that bring up for you? Like, what are you like tossing into the fire again, right? Like coming back in the beginning, I asked everyone to kind of reflect on when they're in the most contracted and, you know, constructed view, right? Like, what is that like? Like, what are they experiencing in their body? What are they thinking? Like just bringing that, you know, that into the space as a doorway, you know, as something that it's just like, to be intense, you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of like religion that has like put us in this very passive seat when it comes to our relationship to the divine. And it just doesn't fucking work, especially because most of you are really intense beings that have a lot of wisdom, that have a lot to share. It's like being passive with the divine is just like, it's not going to work, you know, like you are a part that is who we are. So, you know, to not relate so deeply and intimately is such an injustice, I think, to, you know, the layers of our service and what we came here to offer. And,
It's
you know,
true.
very imperfectly, right? Like I'm always humbled by that experience. I know I am. When it comes, it's like, I'm completely, you know, humbled. And, you know, yeah, I feel like, if I could remember that grace every moment of my life, I still could never repay what I've been given, you know, in terms of the things that have been healed in my consciousness, the things that have moved. So, you know, I was saying also Harshita also has midheaven and Jupiter and Scorpio, which is fun. If you don't know about astrology, don't worry, but I know most of you do. So, just naming that, like, there's this way that we also relate to the divine through, you know, the darkness, and that the darkness is divine. It's not just that there's this like, you know, this binary, there's no binary in this, right? It's like, that is the pull, right? Is that void or that darkness, or, you know, and there's an energy in that, you know, that isn't just something to fear, although that's what we're taught. There's something that actually nourishes us deeply in that space. So, and we get to cultivate greater choice through that experience as we interact with it in ways that, that bring us closer and closer to the truth, you know?
The other thing that I want to say on that is, you know, talking about Maya as the concealer. Maya is also a goddess. Maya is also a great goddess. And I was just thinking about this statue of Bhadrakali that I showed you the picture of. Adriana has been there, and it's like right on the road. Like it's a road in a funky, Ganeshpuri is a funky little Indian village. And the Bhadrakali temple is like right on the road, the village road. And like where that statue is maybe 10 feet away from just a muddy, dirty, shitty Indian road. And she's kind of there, just like witnessing everything going by.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I was just thinking, while Adriana was talking to you guys and giving you the first part of this class, I'm like driving around in my dirty SUV with like teacups in it, with my kids fighting with me, driving around our little town, driving my kid to drop him off at soccer practice, and turn around, driving my daughter to go to her improv class, dropping her off, ugly crying, from, this is only half a mile away, ugly crying for that like last half mile drive, because I'm not going to see them for the next week. Come here, get all this stuff set up, and then like we're talking about this. And how it's not like that is something and this is something. It's like that's part of the intimacy of it too. And we know that you all have your version of that. That's my version of that. Your version of that is whatever it is, combing your hair, having your period, or going to your work thing, or waiting for that client to call you back, or like whatever that thing is, that is just like Maya, that is just like ordinary life, that is I'm putting air quotes, that is distracting us from our spiritual practice, or making us like feel unliberated, or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
But it's like that is her too.
Yeah.
And it's like this image of Bhadrakali that we're going to be chanting to, just sitting there, just so steady, just like watching all of the floods and all of the, she's been there since the 1940s. And so she's seen riots, she's seen communal violence, she's seen horrible fascist regimes. I'm talking about in India. She's seen World War II. She's, and she's just been there. And so part of that is like anchoring for us in the chaos that is our life, whatever our personal chaos is, but the chaos of the collective that we're in right now. God knows we fucking need an anchor in that divine mother right now. And like that. We were talking this morning, I don't want to throw a whole other story into this, but Adriana was reminding me of like the story of Annapurna Devi, that is like the goddess of food and nourishment, and how she came about when, Shiva was but Shiva was there and Shakti was not. Like in that system, masculine was there and the feminine was not. And there was just like famine. And how it is an allegory for so many things. But it's like, is your spiritual practice, is a direct question to you, listener. I don't know who I'm talking to right now.
Yeah, look, Carmen.
No, but I mean, I don't know
Jackie,
I don't know who this message is for, is what I'm saying. I can see on you.
Okay.
I'm just being like a preacher for a second. I don't know who needs this message right now.
No.
But it's like, this is a direct question for you, but for me too. It's like, what needs to get touched right now with this in your spirituality? It's like, is your spiritual practice, is your spiritual training, is your spiritual community, is your this kind of stuff, is it touching you in that place where you need to be touched? Is it getting in there? Like, do you have your coverings enough open? Is it sweet enough to like give you that nourishment? That's the Shakti, that's the Annapurna, not just food, but it's like, is it actually quenching the thirst and wetting cooling the heat, and
And that's what I was going to say about the Annapurna. Like in the story, it's like when Shakti comes back, she manifests as Annapurna, and there's that abundance of nourishment. And, she is in that abundance of nourishment of food, but it's like, as we know, we're nourished on so many levels, right? In our mouths, just the same way that our voice and our expression comes from the deeper places than just our mouth, our words, hold a vibration, right, that come from deeper parts within us that we learn in Tantra. It's like we can be nourished on these different levels, like, you know, re-nourished just on this level, you know, and then we can go deeper and deeper. And so, yeah, that's the invitation today, is to allow there to be a depth to your own nourishment and to what needs nourishment within you.
Abhishek is saying, you're so right about this. Maya is what runs this world. Kal is time. They're mutually inclusive. Yes,
Thank
definitely.
you.
Definitely. They're like both the limitations, but they are just the matrix of what we're living in and what we're serving in and loving in ultimately. Yeah.
Should we do it?
Let's do it. I'm going to try not to set myself on fire. Last one of these, I'm going to keep my clothes on too. I had like 2nd-degree burn.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because you had no shirt on.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I had,
because he has a scar.
yeah, thank you for sharing my HIPAA confidential information. I have I have an old surgery scar, big one,
Sorry.
on my belly, and that is associated with Guru Purnima also, weirdly. Anyway, and it was a Guru Purnima celebration, and somehow the fire was so hot that it made all of that like turn into 2nd-degree burns and blisters and stuff. And now I'll show you later, but it's like the scar's almost kind of gone. It's weird.
Wow.
It's an aside.
We both have a very intense and deep relationship to fire. So that's part of why we do this with you all. It's not like, a frivolous thing. It's like, you know.
Also, I just want to mention, because like, I don't know if Abhishek is actually Indian, but I'm guessing that maybe they are.
I can't see.
Because it's an Indian name, but also just like the nomenclature that he used made me think that it probably is. Is that this fire ceremony? There he is.
Oh,
hi, Abhishek. Where are you, Abhishek, by the way, in the world? Are you in India?
Hi, I live in Vancouver, but I am from Mumbai, India.
Okay.
And I am a Hindu, so you are right about it.
Wonderful.
All the interpretation is good.
If you're from
Sorry.
Mumbai, maybe you
Yes.
know about Bhagwan Nityananda and Ganesh Puri.
Yes, I know. That's why I was very intrigued with this
Okay.
session, and that's why I joined in. Yeah,
Beautiful. Most welcome.
welcome.
thank
So
you.
I just want to say that this fire ceremony that we're doing, it's not a formal fire ceremony. In the Hindu tradition, there is the yajna and there is the homa, and there are different, very formal ritualistic things. This is more of a version of a duni, which is an informal sacred fire. Many of the masters in my lineage kept a duni, and what that means is they just kept a fire all the time going. And in some cases, they would even receive that fire from their master. And so the fire would actually be going for many generations of practitioner and master. So this is informal. When the yajnas, when the homas are done in a formal way, there's important technologies that are put into play. And I just want to say that we're not disrespecting those technologies. We're just not including them because that's not where we're coming from. So just as a disclaimer for the informality of the fire.
Yes. Yeah. And as we know, right, like when we connect to fire as that spiritual, sacred, living energy, I mean, this is, you know, it's such a primordial essence that runs through all traditions. Everybody on this call has ancestry, even in your blood, that at some point was living so close to fire, so close to the earth, so close, you know, that actually had this elemental energy directly in your life, you know, all the time, right? So there's also this, you know, I think this invitation, right, to connect all the way back to that deeper, more primal experience of, you know, being in touch with the unseen through the elements. So you can, if you have a candle, you can definitely meditate on the flame and do the mantra with us. We'll share with you the mantra. And if you don't, no big deal. We're going to have the fire. I'm going to kind of put the screen so you can see it. Okay, but where is it? Oh, okay. And do you want to share the mantra and then?
Yes. Can you do it? Cream.
You want me to put it in here?
Yes.
Hold on.
Just because.
Okay. This one, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll put the mantra in the chat too.
It's a long.
So the mantra, and you could repeat it after me, is Om Cream Kali Kaye Namaha. It's so fun to see everybody. Like, I just
say that cream is the seed mantra for.
So cream, yeah, is the seed mantra for Kalima.
And when we're in, and if people are visual and they're.
You just talk because I'm not
Yeah,
going
of
to translate
course.
while you're sitting here.
If people are visual and you're like actually visualizing Kali, we're really invoking the motherly, sweet, nourishing Bhadra Kali form of Kali. Not so much, we're not invoking the fierceness as much as we are the intensity of love and in totality of that state of the highest state.
Yeah, I love it. And just allowing whatever kind of comes through, you know, in your own consciousness while you're doing this to be part of the prayer, you know, and I always love to invite people to offer, you know, everything in your life to whatever extent feels appropriate for you in this moment, to the fire, right? To be uplifted, to be healed, your relationships, your work. I do this with my work all the time. I'm always offering prayers, obviously, for everyone that comes into our orbit and our field, but also to like not let it be about me. Like there's like this deeper thread and through line right directly to the mother, the divine mother. And so you can also offer your work, like anything that feels like you want to be able to be inside of it in a more free way. You know, it's a beautiful opportunity for that too. Yeah.
They know we're going to do 108.
And so we're going to do 108 rounds.
Get that mala. That is on that hook.
Okay, I need to move this a little bit closer. So I need to move that. Yeah. Okay, is everybody ready? Go on journey. So fun. Okay.
You want to tell them what we're offering?
No, you tell them. So I'm trying to figure this out.
So Adriana is going to be offering little handfuls of, I can't see the monitor.
It's
rice and also these black sesame seeds and this other combination of herbs and sacred wood and cow dung also today, that is traditional offerings for the fire. And I'm going to be offering ghee or clarified butter.
all right, off we go.
The mantras.
Do you want to move it on the other side too?
Doing 108 rounds of this mantra. You can do it with us.
Om Krim Kalikaye Namaha. 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 Om Krim Kalikaye Namaha.
So if your eyes are open and you want to gaze at the fire for another moment or two, you might be able to hear the mantra still reverberating inside. We'll do a little meditation. So you can close your eyes if that feels supportive for your meditation. And just scan through your body with your inner attention from the top of your head all the way down to whatever you're sitting on right now. And let your breath flow very spontaneously. So don't try to control your breath right now. Maybe you let it come in a little bit deeper, go out a little bit longer, if that's what it wants to do. Ultimately, in our community, all of these goddesses are forms of the inner Kundalini Shakti. It's that divine energy that lives in your body, in your own being. And we experience it directly. So bring your attention to your body, the shape of your body, the position that you're sitting in. And just imagine the whole inside of your body. The whole inside of your body is like it's empty. It's just this big empty container that is shaped like you, but it's like a balloon. The inside is totally empty. And inside, your breath is moving. And inside this sacred fire that we've invoked is also moving. Bring your attention right down to the floor of your pelvis, like right down to the base of your torso. Your sex organs, your tailbone, your hip creases, on the physical level, all of that. But again, imagine just inside, it's totally empty. But there's a fire kindled. This is the Kundalini Shakti. And as you breathe, it's like you're drawing that energy, that Kundalini Shakti, up into the rest of your inner space. All the way up into the crown of your head, all the way up, all through your fingertips, your toes. If you hold any blessings, if you hold any curses, if you have any magic, it's all in here. Offer it all to this fire of Kundalini Shakti today. In this special day, this powerful gate. Your breath wants to change, if a sound wants to come, if your body wants to move with the energy, let it move. This is not sitting in a Zen temple, motionless. This is having a direct encounter with this living goddess in our own body. You can use the mantra. Cream is the seed mantra for Kalima. Om Cream Kalikaye Namaha. Or any other mantra that you've been initiated into. That pulsation of the mantra is the name of the Kundalini Shakti. Take a few more breaths to just invite this fire to just move through you, to incinerate anything that you want to let go of. If you believe you have a curse, if you believe you have bad karma, if you believe that you have impurities, just offer these up to be incinerated right now. If you believe that you have magic in you, if you believe that you have blessings upon you, just invite the Shakti to just bring that fire into them and illuminate them. Light yourself up. Adriana and I carry the blessings of our teachers and our teachers' teachers and our teachers' teachers' teachers. And when we do this, we invite them to flow in right now and touch us. And take a few more breaths to let that complete and assimilate. For now, I mean, you can always just stay in meditation too. You can also just hang up the phone or hang up the computer and just go dance around your house or whatever. But for now, for our session, we're going to let our bodies move, let our eyes come open. And we'd love to hear from you.
So coming back into the group when you're ready, you can also just take a few moments to just let your eyes rest on something natural in your space and just let yourself feel where you're sitting and just really come back into where you are and affirming that in your body just by looking around and feeling what you just offered, right? I was sensing so much at the end, the way, like, you know, in the ways that we have this particular non-linear experience of healing and what it means, right? To go through these cycles of like learning lessons. And, you know, like when you said that at the end of like offering whatever wants to be, you know, purified, whatever one, it's like, and I was just really feeling how it's like most of us don't relate to, in this day and age, to like feeling like we need to be like cleansed because we're evil or something. Like it's like a religious thing. And at the same time, when we've gone through experiences and learning from our lessons, right? Learning from our mistakes, learning from, you know, the things that have happened to us that then we perpetuate, whatever that looks like. There's this embodied way of not just intellectualizing our lessons and learning from them, but like really freeing our bodies from these cycles. And, you know, that's such a big part of why I do this work, and we do this work, you know, with the fire, with the elements, with, you know, Mother Nature as this representation of her, of that deeper Shakti that can, you know, really liberate us from, you know, and liberate us, meaning connect us to the parts of us that are already free inside of the lessons that we're learning, the day to day. You know, it's like, it's not like some other time or some other thing to get to, right? When you finally learn that lesson, it's like, yeah, yes. And sometimes you're in that for a reason and you don't understand why yet, but to bring in this willingness and humility to offer it over to something wider, that's where I think the transformation really happens and the love can sprout forth from.
And when Adriana says body, it's not just our bones and our muscles. It's like it's all the body that we understand through yoga. It's our subtle body. It's our causal body. It's our, you know, like these deep energies, you know, that are all part of the mix of that purification. And I'm putting purification in air quotes because there can be a lot of duality and a lot of that religious stuff that like,
or even spiritual stuff
seeps into
like
that.
Cleansing you, you know, like the sage cleanse blessing, like
fixing your chakras, all of that. Most of that is bullshit.
Well, yes. And it's like using
no offense.
the earth, like, you know, sometimes like we do that, like on retreats and stuff. And I'll always be like, oh, can you do that? But make sure you're blessing the person. You're not just like saging them to like get, because they need to be like cleansed before they come in the room. It's also just a way to say like, okay, like we all need energetic cleansing. That's part of why we do this too. This is like, if we're going to be sensitive mystics and live in modernity, we need fucking tools. That's why we're here. And like, let's bless each person that comes in. Let's acknowledge what they're bringing in too, right? Like holding it, not being in that duality, but that there's the gifts that we each carry. And then, there's shit that needs to go all the time, right?
Julianne said, not the Puritans.
Yes, of course, of course. Yeah. So we would love to, like, we have, 15 minutes always here at the end. If you have to go, please feel free to just say bye in the chat if it feels like you want to, do that. Or of course, you're free to go as you wish. And we'd love to hear, in the chat, but also from some of your voices, like, what did you experience? What's arising for you now? What did you notice doing the practice, doing the mantra, connecting to the fire, or in that meditation? Connecting to that inner fire? What are you noticing and what comes up, or any questions that you have? It's so helpful to hear your direct experience to keep dismantling this kind of, idea that you're not a part of this, because, you're very much a part of this. That's why we're here.
Lindsay's saying, I deeply needed to be an empty balloon full of air. Yeah, and space. Even emptier than air is space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the element we're focusing on in our facilitation training right now, space. So it was like perfect to feel that.
Brittany says, I felt so safe to be engulfed in that fire. No fear lives there. So much warmth and comfort. Yeah.
And so you can unmute or just raise your hand if you want to share, or if you have questions, about anything, practice, spiritual, somatic, anything that you're holding and want to bring forth.
I just want to give thanks on the other end of it. I am dancing and feeling light and playful.
Sorry, I was just can you just say one more thing? Because I was just taking off the pin and now I want to see where you are.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I was just saying that I feel playful and light and I'm dancing on the other end of it.
Yes, playful and light and dancing. Beautiful. Yes, yes. And, Harsh should have said at the end, if you want to go off and dance, but definitely like we don't, in the fire ceremonies, we don't guide movement, but we do on our Friday classes. So you're all definitely welcome. Many of you are in our subscription, but we'll literally be dancing tomorrow. But yes, like go off after this call or at some point today, like put on a song and move your body how you wish.
And like we do this
to yeah,
we do this here on this like little camera thing, but hopefully some of you can come and be in live events with us too, like retreats. I know some of you are going to be here in Ojai with us in a couple of weeks for our retreat. But where we would do this and then we would get up and move. Yeah. Or we'd have space to like roll around on the floor and cry,
chanting and dancing.
Whatever.
Yes.
Puke in the garden or like whatever you need to do.
Puke in the garden. Sometimes you just need to puke in the garden. That's real. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, love that. And I also want to say quickly, we have a little like mini course that is going to be focusing on Kali coming out with myself and our colleague who we're going to, and good friend, like soul family, Varsha Chowdhury. She's a psychologist and a longtime sadhaka in Pune, India. And we're all leading a retreat pilgrimage there in January. So there's that. But I'm also putting out a short class and course on Kali and learning how to relate to our sexual energy through meditation. And so, we'll send obviously that to you all so you can be touched by that.
Yes. Thank you, Abhishek. Yeah, do be in touch. Most welcome.
What else did you notice? Anything that you want to share? Or what are you noticing now?
We call them people?
No.
Well, I think for me, hey guys, hey everybody. I totally resonate with that last share. Like after this fire and feeling the fire like go through my body, I was like, oh, I want to dance and just be crazy around my apartment after this. Like, so I'm like really feeling so like energized to that and just be free.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bella. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's like
energized.
The version of a human being that society makes space for is so narrow, compared to everything that we are. Yeah.
Yes. What else? What did you notice?
Maybe we should call people. Holly says, this felt so powerful. Lots of strong sensations in my throat and back. A theme of having the courage to be disliked came through. Oh my gosh, that is so intense. By others, but also by myself. Letting it all come to the table. Yeah.
Thank you, Holly. That's really powerful.
Because otherwise, then if we don't have the courage to look at that, then we just like go unconscious or just hide from that or just pretend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I mean, that's the main thing with purification is it's an invitation into authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah. And in one of the in that class I was talking about with Varsha, she talks about Kali's tongue as being a representation of the freedom of expression. It's like the tongue is hanging out so far, it can only release and express what is the most true and what is the most, authentic, meaning like true, right? Like it's tongue is like all the way out. It's not just like kind of coming out, it's like coming from her navel, and I love that. And I love what Holly shared, because I feel like that's one of the keys into us really owning our power in our expression, is, being with the reality that we will be disliked. I mean, we will be disliked. That's just the reality of life. And the more free, you are in your expression, the more that you'll kind of get some of that energy back to work with. And then it kind of keeps feeding into the deeper layers of liberation in my experience, even though it's not always fun. Yeah. So
you guys have probably heard this before, but there's a saying that comes from the 12-step tradition that there are a few people that are going to love you no matter what. And there's a few people that are going to hate you no matter what. Most people are never even going to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
Most people don't care about you one way or the other. So just relax.
I like that. Sometimes I say that like when I ask people to share and like people are afraid, and like especially online, we have like in our community in our facilitation training, and I'm like, guys, most people are not paying attention to what you're saying, and if they are, they're gonna share like a generous reflection because we literally have placed them there to do so, and it's just the way it is. So that's why I know we feel fear around sharing ourselves in community, because we have certain woundings around that we're hopefully healing through this process. But that's true. I love that.
Evan was saying it was intense. A lot of shame came up. I realized that my practice has been a bit selfish lately. And then I also realized I was being too hard on myself. And there's been a lot of selfishness as well. Selflessness as well. Yes. Thank you. Lots of conflicting inner child energy as per usual these days. But see, that's the thing. It's like our practice is a time when we get to just go in and be very self-investing, self-absorbed, like that's where we go in and we're like flossing our teeth and wiping our ass, like we're taking care of ourselves on that really deep level, on that personal level, so that then when we go out from practice, then we can be more available. If we're not self-invested enough, then that's when we become self-absorbed in our outer life. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. And if anybody is doing any practice, give yourself rewards.
Gold stars.
Gold stars.
I always need gold stars.
Gold stars don't do it for me, but like treats and rewards and stuff like that really do.
Gold stars work great for me. Just in case anybody wanted to give me one.
But just to say, like, celebrate every time you step out of the stream of capitalism and just societal fuckedness, and to work on yourself, like celebrate that, even if it's just like a half-hearted attempt.
Jackie said, my 4-year-old said yesterday, my tongue goes all the way down my spine.
Love that.
Yes. So good. Ashley said, I love the reminder in the beginning of the fire that we have the opportunity to release our work, our practices, and relationships. I really needed that reminder and moved with that. I felt grief and freedom at the same time, and it felt so beautiful with lightness at the end. Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, that's a really like common practice that I learned. I don't remember like where that first came to me, but I think when we're looking at desire and we're looking at like taking away the shame of having desire on the spiritual path, but also not just becoming like consumer, we're not just being lost in it. It's like part of the key for that is, and part of the key of like being able to have intimate relationships and be on a spiritual path and be like serving in the world is to be able to offer it all over and to feel, who am I without this relationship? Like I did this at the river the other day because,
who am I without which relationship?
This one. With any relationship, but yes, also with you. That's like part of my practice because, and also with my work, like the other day when I went to the river, that was what I was, I was doing blessings for everybody in our community. And then I also really like, what if my work wasn't flourishing right now? Like how would I feel? Like, who would I be? Like, what would be the shit that would come up then? And that's still there somewhere in me. And that's what helps, I find, keep me clear and free in my relating, and helps work with the subconscious, codependent, like, oh, I need, all that shit. It's like, that's always a part of our experience because we all have consciousness and we all have unconscious, right? And a subconscious. So I really love like taking the risk and like offering over even the things that we love, the attachments with, your family, like all of it, to see. I mean, I'm not suggesting you have to feel that impulse within yourself. I'm a little bit crazy, but like, if you have that impulse to really feel like you get so hooked into like, you know, if your work is going well or not, and then you have all this drama around that, if your relationship is just like fucking up your life, you know, and
Or
it's
if you
like,
don't have a relationship,
right,
and
and
you think
that's fucking up
that's
your
what's
life, right?
fucking up your life.
It's like whatever it is, it's like, wait, can I offer this?
I don't know if you guys catch that. What she's saying is so important.
Yeah.
Because it's like you think that like I don't have this thing,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that thing is there, then you're like,
yeah,
I have this thing,
and I'm not okay.
and that's why I'm not okay.
Right.
And the common denominator is that there's a part of us that's always just gonna feel like we're not okay.
Yeah.
And that we then attach to these different things.
Yeah. And what gives us the freedom to have the desire too, to like have the desire to relate without feeling shame. Because I think people on a spiritual path, because of patriarchal spirituality, we feel like, oh, none of these things should matter to me. But the reality is that they fucking do, obviously. And so can we bring that too? Can we bring our desires and say all this that I desire or something greater or something more true or something more aligned, you know, like giving it over, you know, is so huge for me.
Can I say one?
Yeah. And then Brittany raised her hand.
One yoga geek version of
Yeah.
what you're saying. So like in Sanskrit, there are these two terms, raga and itcha. So like raga is a word for like desire in the sense of like incompleteness, from a sense of incompleteness, from a place of disconnection. Then we're constantly desiring to complete ourselves with outer things. It's a source of suffering. But then through the process of sadhana, we awaken this power, this Shakti called Icha Shakti, which is sometimes called power of will, but it also means desire too. And so like Icha Shakti is like that thing that's like, let me create this, like, let me serve like this, like, let me make my life this offering, you know, like, and that is very much like desire. And it's not this image that she's talking about, this patriarchal thing. It's like, I have no desires. I don't want anything except for just a handful of chickpeas and some water, and no desires, no love, you know, whatever, like that. It's not like that at all. It's like the freer we become, the more delighted we are with our world. And the more delighted we are with our time. Kal then becomes like opportunity. Like, yes, like I have some time. Let's do something wonderful with it. I have this body. Let's do something wonderful with it. It's amazing, but it's not this. It's not this thing of like denial and emptiness and austerity in that way.
I love that. Yeah. And the ways that will, when it's like there's a certain kind of suffering that comes from not fulfilling that will. Like when we have a will to serve, there's certain kinds of boundaries, right? When people are like, I need better boundaries. There's certain kinds of boundaries that can only come from fulfilling that desire. Actually, there's a certain kind of spiritual evolution that can only come from us fulfilling the desire we have to serve sometimes too. So that's why it's like, yeah, it's so wild.
And like knowing what
so important.
Knowing what our purpose is. I was just writing about this yesterday. Somebody mentioned it on social media, but it's like, if we don't know what our purpose is, then it's very difficult, you know, taking the time to like know why we're here. Or even like in relationship, like if you're in a relationship, what is the purpose of this relationship? We need to do this vision board also, but it's like then things are just so much more clear. I also just want to say,
Brittany's had her hand up.
Before we run out of time, I hope that some of you already that are here are coming in a couple weeks to Ojai to be on retreat with us, and we have a couple spots open. So like, come, and we're gonna have fire, we're gonna have water, we're gonna take you to the river. It's like an advanced level Mahayoga retreat, but I think a lot of you would be perfectly qualified to come.
Some of them are coming.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
And so if there's a couple of you that are feeling that urge to come out to Ojai and spend it's like a Sunday to Wednesday retreat, let us know.
Yeah.
Let's see. Brittany had her hand up, or their hand up. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, thank you for this. I was feeling into staying in the portal of beauty and realizing that I feel, or I think I'm normally designing my life and creating my life to be full of beauty. And I was having this realization that it's almost like for every gallon of pain that I feel, I give myself an ounce of beauty. And through the meditation, I was like, why the fuck am I doing that? Like, why am I gatekeeping the beauty and thinking that it can't be equal and it can't be, or just that, give and take balance in some equal form.
That's amazing that you like saw, like you've set up this algorithm for yourself. We have so many of those things, all of us, that are just like these unconscious agreements and vows that we've made and stuff. That is so powerful, Brittany. Thank you for sharing that. I hope others like can take what Brittany's saying and look at your own, like like how much pain do you have to experience before you let yourself, enjoy some life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Brittany. Bree said, the first ever body temple dance class I attended, the word service screamed at me. When we have the will to serve, there's a suffering in not fulfilling that desire.
Yes.
I needed to hear this today. This reminder that it's important. And the past couple of years have been preparing me to be of service. Totally. Thank you so much, Bree. Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And I think a lot of people, like, especially in this particular community, it's such a good reminder, because it's like, there's a certain, like, our soul just like needs to be of service. It needs that, it needs to know, like, it's like, I'm here to help, you know what I mean? I'm not just here to be helped. It's, and it's like that, there's such a satisfaction in that. That's really life-changing. I mean, it definitely has been for me and continues to be, and also fuels my spiritual practice. You know what I mean? Just because of the neurodivergent way that my brain works, it's like, okay, like I have a responsibility to I have a sacred responsibility in the work that I do. I can't just like not have my own personal practice, because I can't then, what I'm offering is like, it's not as rooted in something real. And that's what I'm here for. Or it's not as rooted in love, or it's not, it's like, it gives me courage actually to be of service, because it helps me then face the shit that I need to face, because I know on the other side of that, every time, I'm going to be able to be of greater service through the experiences that I'm going through and learning from, and the tools that I'm gathering along the way. So it also makes like every cycle, it makes it more sustainable to be in this non-linear continual process of like being human, but also having a connection to the divine, so.
And I'll just testify that like this person sitting here,
please.
Sitting here next to me, she just wakes up in the morning and she just goes like, and she's just like serving, she calls it working, but it's really serving. And then the only thing that she takes breaks for is to like do body work or, get help for herself so that she can serve more. And then by the end of the day, she just like drops over like a puppy. She just falls over and she's just done. And then she wakes up in the morning and she's like back at it again. And that is just the cycle of her pretty much ever since that I've known her. And as she moves along on her spiritual path, it's just, that's more and more of how she expresses.
I like thinking about me turning into a puppy.
That's how puppies are. There's like playing and playing, and then they just like fall over wherever they are.
That's definitely my vibe. Okay. All right, friends. I just want to read this one last thing that Ali said.
And B put the link to the retreat.
Yes, thank you, B. And I'll send you the mini course we're putting out on the shameless goddess and working with Kali and connecting to our sexual energy. And Ali said, I'm hearing service as receptivity to your life, shaping, molding, growing you to serve more. Yeah. And this bringing delight. Yes. Thank you for that reflection. So
delight
much.
And relief from that suffering of not following your purpose, not serving, like tune into that suffering and follow that. One time Guru Mai said, of all the things we cry about, of all the things that keep us up at night, have we ever had that experience where we're like kept up at night because we're not serving and crying ourselves to sleep because, we're not serving as deeply as we're called to. And how that is actually like such a divine kind of pain to feel.
Yeah.
It's not guilt because you're not doing enough.
That's like a feminine, that's like the gift of the feminine.
No, it's this other thing of like, I have time, I have gifts.
Devotion.
How can I serve? I'm not serving enough.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yes. Okay. So let's have everyone unmute to say bye for now. I'll see some of you tomorrow. And yeah, reach out. Let us know. Let us know anything you need. We're here. Lots of love.
Bye.
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 You all.
Thank you and bye bye.
Mm.